Today, we're going to tackle a huge piece of the economy. But forget the complex charts and jargon. We're going to understand it through a simple story about a forest, a very hungry squirrel, and just one single acorn. Let's dive right in.
So, let me ask you this. Do you ever get that feeling? You work hard, you do everything right, but somehow the money in your bank account just doesn't seem to stretch as far as it did last year. Everything just feels more expensive.
Yeah, this quote here really nails it. It's like this invisible force is just slowly draining the power from your money. Well, there's a name for that silent thief. It's called inflation. And by the end of this, you're not only going to know its name, you'll understand exactly how it sneaks into your wallet.
To get there, we need to go back to the very, very basics. So, we're heading into the woods to find the one simple rule that makes the entire economic world tick.
Okay, picture this with me. In this entire vast forest, there is only one acorn. That's it, just one. All of a sudden, that single acorn becomes incredibly important, right? It's not just food anymore. It's wealth. It's rare. It's precious. And man, is it valuable.
This slide pretty much says it all. On the left, with just one acorn, its value is through the roof. But on the right, when the trees are literally overflowing with acorns, they're everywhere. They're common, and their value just plummets.
And that right there, that's the simple heartbeat of the entire economy. Scarcity. When something is limited and a lot of people want it, it has value. That's the one rule you have to remember as we go forward.
So, if scarcity is the golden rule, what happens when things start getting more expensive? Well, let's bring a bunch of squirrels into our story and see how this all plays out.
All right, a really harsh winter is on the horizon. Every single squirrel in the forest is panicking, trying to stock up. Their demand, this hoarding hunger, is off the charts. But here's the problem. The trees can only produce so many acorns. The supply is totally maxed out.
So what happens? You've got way too many squirrels all chasing the same limited number of acorns. That intense demand literally pulls the price up. Economists have a name for this: demand pull inflation.
But wait, what if the problem isn't the squirrel's hunger? Let's try a different scenario. A massive flood comes through and wipes out half of the acorn harvest. The supply chain is just broken. Now, every single acorn that's left is suddenly way, way scarcer.
This is the second type, and it's called cost-push inflation. The price gets pushed up, either because the supply got hammered, like in our flood, or because the cost to produce acorns, things like fertilizer or better tools for the farmer, went up. That extra cost gets pushed right onto the buyer.
So let's just recap real quick. You've got two main reasons prices rise. On one hand, demand pull. Too many squirrels want the acorns. On the other hand, cost push. Something bad happened to the supply of acorns. Two totally different causes, but the same result: a much more expensive acorn.
Now, this next part of the story is where things take a very, very dangerous turn. This is where we see how money can actually lose its soul.
The forest king gets a bright idea. To make everyone feel super rich, he makes a big announcement. From now on, regular old leaves are money. Just like that, overnight, every squirrel has thousands and thousands of leaves. They feel like absolute millionaires.
I mean, it must feel amazing, right? Pockets just bulging with leaves. But let me ask you this. With all these new leaves flying around, are the squirrels actually any richer?
No way, not a chance. Because the squirrel who sells the acorns, he's not an idiot. He looks around, sees that leaves are everywhere now, they're not scarce at all, and he immediately says, "Oh, you want this acorn? It's going to cost you a much bigger pile of leaves now."
And this is how you get a death spiral. People see the acorn price soaring, so the king, trying to help, just creates even more leaves. But that just makes the leaves even more worthless, so the supplier jacks up the price again. It's a race to the bottom that destroys everything. And this isn't just some fairy tale. This has happened in the real world. You look at places like post-war Hungary, or more recently, Zimbabwe. They printed so much money that it literally became cheaper to use it as wallpaper than to buy things with it. Eventually, the whole system just collapses. Okay, I know, that got a little grim. But don't worry, our story doesn't have to end in total disaster. There is a solution. There's something a wise squirrel can do to protect themselves. Let's bring this all the way back to you and your wallet. Because this quote is the hard truth. If the price of gas, groceries, everything keeps going up, but your paycheck, your pile of leaves, stays the same,
you are, by definition, getting poorer. That silent thief is winning.
So you really have two choices here. You can be the squirrel who hoards all their leaves, stuffing them under a rock where that thief can just eat away at their value day after day. Or you can be the squirrel who plants them. You can put them to work.
And in our world, this idea of planting your leaves has a name, and that name is investing. It is the simple act of taking your money, your resources, and using them to buy things that can actually grow and create more value down the road.
And this, right here, is probably the most important takeaway of all. The leaves, the currency, can become worthless. They can lose their soul. But a productive asset, whether it's a healthy acorn tree in our story or a wise investment in the real world, that will always have real, tangible value. That will always have the power to feed you.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought. We've seen just how fragile currency can be, how its value can just fade away. The real question, the one you have to answer for yourself is, what are you going to do to make sure yours doesn't just survive, but actually grows?